Most bankers aren't ready to help you until after their third cup of coffee. But with Central National Bank's after-hours service, you don't have to wait for the bank lobby to open to get help. You can contact us from 6 to 8:30 in the morning or from 5 to 10 in the evening, and we'll connect you to a real, live, local person who can answer questions and fix problems 7 days a week. Bank different. Bank Central. Central National Bank. Member FDIC.
Hey, what's up, Blazer fans? Welcome to the Blazers Edge podcast, part of the Almighty Baller Radio Network. I'm Tara, and I'm joined, as always, by Blazers outsider Danny Marang.
Oh, hi. Is it basketball season yet? It's time, right?
We're a few weeks away still. How is your off season going? Is your off season more like E.T., who appears to be partying his way across the U.S., at least on Instagram? Or is it more like CJ, where you're getting in fights with all-stars on Twitter?
Yes.
Like both?
I'm eating all of the things and doing the one thing Evan Turner vowed to not do, to put on the extra weight. I'm kidding. Although I did enjoy a delicious, 16-inch corn dog at the Newburgh Old Fashioned Fair this weekend.
Yeah.
That was...
Does that fit into the keto diet?
Yeah, no, it definitely doesn't. I had my cheat day for the first time in 2 months, and yeah, I felt like I died, but it was worth it. So shout out country fairs and corn dogs.
Yeah,
and then,
corn dogs are really good. They
seriously,
just are.
I think that's a measurement for how decent a human being is. Do you like corn dogs? Yes. Okay, you're a decent human being. No, what's wrong with you?
They just really are. They're one of the perfect foods, and
yeah, they really are.
I try to eat really well. I try to eat, wholesome and clean, but yeah, there's just nothing like a corn dog when you really want one. I've been on vacation for a week, so I've had a lot of time to just, think and reflect, and I keep thinking about NBA stuff, and I keep thinking, I wonder what Dan thinks about this. So later on, after we get through Blazer stuff. No, it's not. I want to know what you think about some of the league-wide stuff, because we've spent a lot of time obviously talking about the Blazers, but now with the Kawhi trade having gone through, things are kind of starting to round into shape, and I'm really curious about what you think about some of those things. But let's start off with our Portland Trail Blazers. A couple small bits of news, or big, depending on who you are, because I guess for these guys, this is huge news. It looks like Pat Connaughton has found a home. He is going to be going to Milwaukee. So shout out to Pat. Do you have a favorite Pat story or something favorite about Pat Connaughton?
I just love the fact that he's still out there doing Instagram videos, showing everybody how sneaky athletic he is.
Did you see the one where he jumped up onto that giant pile of mats?
The 62-inch box? Yeah, the 62-inch box.
Oh, I call it a giant pile of mats. But in any way, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, he's got... Okay, so the way I always try to describe this, because Pat's not sneaky athletic. He's stupidly athletic.
Yeah, he's in-your-face athletic.
He's the thing. I think part of the reason why is he's not a in-game big-time dunker is because if you watch almost everything that he does where he's explosive, it's off 2 feet. And that's great for dunk contests or Instagram videos or jumping on, CrossFit boxes. But it's very rare that you give the opportunity as a perimeter player in the NBA to get off 2 feet.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah, the types of moves that he's doing on Instagram are much different than the types of situation he finds himself in the middle of the games.
He's just stupidly explosive off 2 feet. And if you look at his best dunks, he had the kind of East Bay funk dunk that he had in game on the reverse putback. Some of the alley-oops that he has, they're always a clear runway where he can get off two, as opposed to just getting off of one. But I'm actually really excited to see him playing alongside Giannis and Eric Bledsoe, because they could just run out a lineup. It's just so vertically explosive.
Yeah.
They could take advantage of his ability to run the floor and get up in transition where he can have the ability to get off of 2 feet.
Yeah, he could be flying a lot in that lineup. So I'm glad for him. You know, every year this time of the year, I'm thinking, well, maybe this is it for Pat Connaughton. Maybe he's going to move on and play baseball now. But he just stays in the league. So I really admire him. You know, he had a nice run here, and I wish him well. And I'm gonna miss. I loved him on the bench. I really did love his bench antics, and I never really realized I don't watch a ton of baseball, but I watched an NCAA game sitting next to a guy who is a huge baseball nut as well, and he said that he loved watching Pat Connaughton because he really seemed like the kind of guy who honed his bench time like in the dugout, because when you're a baseball player you spend half your time in the dugout waiting.
Well, yeah, you have to be a good teammate because he's he's a pitcher, so he's only getting called up whether he's just working as a starter or coming off the bench as a reliever. He's only getting out there when he's called up, and so he's got a lot of downtime. And you're right, he's kind of perfected the art of being in the bench or in the clubhouse.
I wonder who's going to be the new
Sauce.
Oh, you think
it's Sauce?
Now, why do you say that?
Because he's used to being on the bench.
Was that
I know that sounds bad, but I think
yes, it does. Do you want to explain that a little bit further?
I think that's kind of his role. Is to be that guy. I mean, it's just he's not a guy that gets off the bench a whole lot, and I think realistically the Blazers brought him in as that 13th through 15th guy. I know a lot of people are projecting him to maybe get some minutes, but I don't really see that happening. He may get the minutes that Jake Layman used to get as Jake moves up a peg on the board. But yeah, otherwise he's very much bench cheerleader, which is cool. That's totally fine. Let's come up with some new stuff. You can't reach back into the bag and go 3 goggles. You got to come up with something new.
Yeah, that's true. We could have a little bit of new blood, bringing some sort of new celebration. Well, that'll be something for us to keep our eye on this year. So anyway,
it really is July going into August.
I know.
We're talking about bench celebrations, folks.
Good for Pat. Okay, another little piece of news that came across the interwebs today on Instagram. It appears that Jake got engaged, so that's exciting. I've been saying that it's going to be the season of Jake Layman, so it looks like he's got some really great news in his personal life as well. The Trailblazers just tweeted it out, so congratulations to him. So we've got Pat Connaughton moving on to Milwaukee. We've got Jake Layman ready to move into another part of his life. And then we've got guys like E.T. and C.J. and the kinds of things they're up to. We talked...
Yeah, hey, and you know what? You had Myers who's handing out food and water downtown today, too.
That's right.
Or was that
That's
yesterday?
Right.
So,
yeah.
But yeah, everybody's kind of up to something, doing something cool, fun, interesting. I think with Evan Turner and C.J., you're definitely strongly landing the needle on the interesting side.
Right. Now, is E.T. just in the U.S.? Because last year he did a lot of travel abroad, and it looks like this year...
E.T.'s doing wedding season. That's what he's doing. That man, I think he's been in I've seen him on his Instagram 3 different weddings. He is doing the wedding tour as a man who is close to entering his 30s. That's about right.
Yeah.
I think from 28 to 31, I went to most of the weddings. We're in that range. So I can imagine for a guy who has traveled around as much as he has in the league, it's about that time. So,
and is a really popular player.
Yeah, exactly.
Popular. He has a lot of friends around the league. So we shall see. I just keep remembering him at the exit interview promising the coaches that he wasn't going to put on weight. So
yeah,
kudos
good luck with
to
that
him
at weddings.
For giving that a try. I know if I was partying that hard, it might be a little hard. But let's get to the heart of the matter, the big one, which is CJ and had Kevin Durant on his podcast. I think even people on the moon by now have heard this story because it really has taken the media by storm. So CJ's podcast, the Pull Up, which he's been doing for, 6 months or so, he had Kevin Durant on as a guest. And I listened to it as soon as it comes out, and it was pretty interesting because they talked about a lot of interesting stuff that was kind of cool to be like a fly on the wall of 2 stars. I mean, I know, CJ has had, other interesting guests on there, but none is a big deal as Kevin Durant. So, but it did, I think what I said about it was, boy, neither of these guys are really doing themselves any favors on this podcast, because they were really ribbing each other like really pretty hard. And I know that I'm ultra sensitive to things like this, but people did pick up on, Kevin Durant making fun of CJ and the Blazers, that they were never going to win a championship.
It was the passive aggressive Olympics.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on this whole interaction?
Thing? Because there's multiple parts to it.
Yeah. I mean, we could break it down. Do you want to start off with who won?
We'll start off with in a world where there can be a lot of winners, they still found a way to both be losers.
Yeah, that know what really excited me about this, and then I'll stop talking and let you talk. I thought that this was the perfect time for me to bring out my phrase that I'm trying to make popular, which is, "This is what happens when a python swallows a porcupine." I thought that was like the perfect use for that, because it's kind of like when nobody wins.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, it was, when I first listened to it, the first thing I was like, man, now I'm hungry. I wonder what they're eating. Because they're sitting there like munching on a sandwich or something.
Yeah, the second episode especially, because they divided it into two parts. In the second one, I was like, you guys just put down your food and chew. We can wait.
There were parts during the conversation where like you could mentally, visually picture what was happening. Like, sandwich in one hand, like take a bite, then talk your trash, and then kind of look up through your eyebrows and give them a grin. Like, yeah, you think that's funny, huh? I mean, you want to see me be passive aggressive? Well, you're never going to win a title. You know that, right? And then it was like, oh, okay. And then CJ kind of backed off, and then had to kind of defend what he needed to say. It was there was a lot of things going on there. And
so as Trailblazer fans, how do you think, I mean, looking at it from through, the team that CJ plays on. So how do you think CJ, stood up for the team and his teammates and the city? I mean, what do you kind of think about it from that angle?
I think it was more about CJ than the Blazers in general, because whether people want to admit it or not, the whole DeMarcus Cousins thing kind of put CJ on the defensive, by himself. So,
you mean when CJ started off the conversation by talking about DeMarcus going to the Warriors and just being like, "Hey, what's the deal?"
Yeah, the whole Nurkic thing. You don't want Nurkic. Nurk not good enough for you. Oh, of course, Nurk's good for us. So he had to go with the proper way to save face, as it were. And whether or not that's true, again, something we've talked about a lot this offseason are the optics. Mm-hmm. Excuse me, I got something in my throat. And really, a lot of the optics for the Blazers this year just haven't been good. If not for like the saving grace of Damian Lillard driving a U-Haul full of shoes. The amount of like good things that could be said about the Blazers, like outside of the immediate basketball stuff, hasn't been great, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, in terms of like just any of the moves that the Blazers have made, that since they haven't just generally done much, there hasn't been much to say. But one of the things that I appreciate about CJ and this podcast is that he's able to ask questions and get answers that maybe the media can't.
Well, yeah, that's a different level of access and comfort and familiarity that you're not going to get. I mean, I think the only person who even comes close to this is a guy who used to be up here, and Chris Haynes. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of people that are out there that these guys will go on their show and be able to communicate effectively and with a level of trust and understanding that you kind of know what to say, what not to say, and have the rapport necessary to have like those like really open communications. And the reason I brought up Haynes is, guess who's the guy who got the DeRozan interview? Mm-hmm. Probably the most sought after interview outside of Kawhi and LeBron for the season. Mm-hmm. And DeRozan said some things that were, pretty out there as far as what you would typically expect from that kind of interview. Mm-hmm. I think CJ does a lot of the same thing, because people do look at him as a top level NBA player, and that commands a certain level of respect.
There were a couple of little bits in their conversation that I want to ask you about before we turn to the fact that the conversation was later on carried out on Twitter. But there were just a couple little nuggets in there that I was like kind of bummed that have sort of gotten lost in the whole discussion. One of them was when they were talking about, KD was, he was making fun of the Blazers for their first round exit, making fun of CJ.
Playing like an 8 seed.
Right. But he talked about, one thing he said is that he didn't like the Pelicans' strategy against the Blazers because he thought it was gimmicky. I was really curious. That was one of those things where I was like, oh, I wonder what Dan thinks about that. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of that, though, is because the gimmick is, take away from Portland. Take Damian Lillard away from Portland.
Yeah, I mean, the gimmick was send everybody against CJ and Dame. But my thought was like, well, it worked.
Yeah. I mean, the reason those gimmicks work is because of the way the roster's constructed. The reason those gimmicks don't work against him on Golden State is because if you take one of them away, you still have another Hall of Famer to give the ball to. So, I mean, that's why it's a gimmick, KD. Mm-hmm. And this, again, if we want to talk about KD in general here, for being such an immensely skilled, talented, and thoughtful NBA player. His awareness and self-awareness about things, sometimes it just blows me away, the just considerable lack of either. Yeah, no kidding, it was gimmicky, KD. That's what happens when you don't have 3 other Hall of Famers to get the ball to. So, and then the whole, we'll go into the Twitter thing, calling somebody else a snake. I mean, find another word, dude. Like, even if you don't believe KD is a snake, like what is the meme of KD? It's snake. Find some other way to work your way around that. So I think the entire time I was listening to that podcast is like I had my eyes like rolled the majority of the time, just because KD's just one of those dudes where even when he says something interesting, he finds a way to make you like, why did you go one step further? Like why did you have to do that? Like just like you're talking about with the whole gimmicky thing. Okay, maybe phrase that a little bit differently. Like I thought the way the Pelicans went after you was kind of one-dimensional. Why was that a problem for you guys?
Well, yeah, I thought it was interesting that NBA players think that somebody's strategy is a gimmick because I mean, isn't all strategies some kind of a gimmick, really? I mean, all defenses, you're trying to do something, and I don't know, I just thought it was a strange word, and I was wondering if you thought he like really meant it as like, oh, I thought that was gimmicky, because I was like, it seemed like it worked to me.
Well, yeah, but that's what I mean with Kevin Durant's inability or lack of awareness. Like it's a gimmick if it doesn't work.
Yeah. Or is it a gimmick to like the way Houston plays, to only take threes and dunks, or at the rim and threes? Like is that a gimmick, or is that just evolution? I've been thinking a lot about how basketball might evolve in the next iteration, because it's never going to stay the same. And so, one of the things that has changed in the last several years is, the amount of 3-pointers that people are taking. And then you take Houston, a team like Houston, and isn't what they've been doing kind of a gimmick in a way, in that, they take so many, they either, shoot from 3 or they shoot right at the basket.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's another conversation for another time about the evolution of the.
No,
of the
I'm right there with you with how one kind of begets the other. What starts out as a gimmick becomes a trend 3 years later. But I mean, taking away a star player or the best player in the playoffs isn't. I don't know if I would really call that a gimmick.
A double team. You call it a double team.
Yeah, double, triple team, quadruple team at times. But like that's nothing really new. Like that was before super teams. That's how you went after teams in the playoffs. You made everybody else beat you. I just think that the Pelicans exacerbated that, because that's what Alvin Gentry does. He takes one thing and he cranks it to 11.
I thought also maybe it was Kevin Durant's way of kind of trying to throw the Blazers
Trolling?
a bone. No, I thought it was his way of like trying to being like, well, you guys got taken by this weird thing that the Pelicans did. I don't know. I thought it could have been something like that.
I don't know. With guys at that level, I would say that's almost a pity kind of thing. And guys at that level definitely don't want to see. They don't want that pity gratitude or anything along that line. You know what I mean?
Right. So I've been thinking about him, and I think that Kevin Durant should just go ahead and lean into the villain role. I think he's trying to fight it, and like
he wants to be loved.
But we just want him to be. But he spends so much time talking about how he doesn't care. But he cares so much about
He's not sensitive.
He doesn't care.
Tara, he's not sensitive.
But I think you should just lean into the villain role and just like be that guy. And let it. I mean, listen to me telling somebody that they should lean into the villain role. But but here's why: is because like everybody needs somebody to rally around. And if he leans into this, being the villain, like every team is going to be trying to figure out a way to take down him and a way to fight down him, and it will place him at the center of so many narratives, whereas right now it's just kind of like, oh, Kevin Durant did this weird thing, let's talk about him for 15 minutes or whatever. But if he just like dove head first into being the villain, I think it could be good for him, and I think it's good for basketball. And that kind of goes to like one of the other things that I want to talk about with the Warriors is like the whole thing, they ruined the league or whatever. And I was wondering about this in terms of like, did they really ruin the league, or is it maybe have they made other teams play better because they want so badly to beat them?
Meh.
You don't think so? You don't think that the way that they've constructed their team has made other teams try that much harder?
No, because I think the vast majority of people understand that what the Warriors have done is, and credit where it's due, but I think the reason why you don't get those guys tooting their own horns publicly all that much is because of how much luck was involved. Drafting Steph Curry, okay, that was risky and it worked out well for them. Well, if they knew that, then why are they underpaying Steph Curry in his contract? Well, his ankles were glass, so that worked out for you. If everybody knew Draymond Green was going to be so good, he's not going to get drafted where he got drafted. So you got a Hall of Fame all-defensive player in the second round. You got Klay Thompson to take less money. You had no cap smoothing and allowed Kevin Durant to be able to have the space necessary to make that. Like every single thing has worked out for them. And again, credit where it's due, but organizations around the league are not going, oh, okay, so I need 27 things to happen perfectly in order to, have a chance to beat this team, or have LeBron James plus two other superstars and hope for one of the best finals performances of all time.
So you don't think that other teams trying to figure out how to unlock the secret that it's going to take to beat them is producing better basketball? No.
I think that right now you're looking at teams like the Celtics and 76ers who are not really, they want to beat the Warriors. There's no doubt there. But what they're really looking at is, okay, the Warriors aren't going to be a problem in 2 years. Like contracts, cash, age, everything else that kind of goes with it. That all kind of funnels away and disappears over the next 2 to 3 years, right? I mean, that's
so they're just biding
theory.
Their time.
Yeah, they're getting their education, as it were, that you need in order to be a champion, because you usually bump up against that ceiling a few times before you get there. And then once that dynasty wears them, now they'll take the finals trip, and if they do get lucky or if they do kind of come together and grow even more, the Celtics or the 76ers, and they have a shot at the Warriors in the finals and they pull a victory, they're going to claim that they've been building towards beating the Warriors because it sounds damn good. But none of these organizations are going in with the thought of, we can beat the Warriors this year. As long as they have a healthy Steph, Durant, Klay, and Draymond, nobody's going into a season thinking, we can really beat this team. Especially not on a team like Houston now, who lost their two best wing defenders. So That's a long-winded rant on it, but yeah, I think teams want to put out the narrative that they're doing that, but I don't think in reality anybody's really trying to, and I think that's why you see somebody like CJ McCollum who voiced his frustration, like, man, like, he could have gone anywhere else, and he went to you guys, the Warriors, talking about Cousins. Mm-hmm. And he specifically called out that, yeah, no, I called Boogie. Like, I had to figure out exactly what was going on. So I think it lets you know that players aren't trying to build towards that. So why would organizations?
The players are not trying to build towards that?
Towards, being this super...
You don't think Damian Lillard wants to unlock the secret to beating the Warriors?
I think he does, but I think in the back of his head, the realization is there that you're not beating 4 Hall of Famers. Unless you're able to yourself stack up 3 or 4 Hall of Famers.
But you always talk about how, great these guys' egos are, and don't you think that helps compel them towards, excellence or whatever that thing is that, that you're so into?
Oh, yeah, no,
the competition
I do.
makes them better?
Yeah, no, I definitely do. But I think that even for that, there is a turning point for it. Like, I think that there's a realization that there hasn't ever been a team like this in history. Mm-hmm. A team with 4 in-prime Hall of Famers on it.
Yeah.
Like, the closest you can get is maybe the Celtics. And even then, you aren't talking about... Here's the thing, it's not just it's 4 Hall of Famers. It's the fact that you're talking about the second best player of this generation, the best shooter of all time, one of the top 3 defenders of all time, and a guy who is probably going to go down as top 5, at least top 10, best shooters in NBA history in Klay Thompson. Like, it's not just that it's 5 Hall of Famers. It's that it's 4 Hall of Famers. It's the combination of where they are and the position they're in their career, and that even to the most egomaniacal, driven, top-tier superstar athlete can be soul-crushing. Do you think LeBron went to the Lakers now to build a basketball dynasty? No, he's not trying to unlock the secret to beating the Warriors. He's trying to live in L.A. and have a brand beyond basketball. Because you're talking about the best player in the world.
Huh. I don't know. I disagree. I think that these guys do want to unlock the secret. I don't think they're just going to take it. I think every time that any of these guys play the Warriors,
I think they want to.
They want to beat them, and they believe that they can, and they think that they're going to be able to figure it out.
No, I think that there may be a part of them, there may be a strong part of them, maybe even a majority part of them that thinks they can do it, but there's an overwhelming sensation, I would imagine, for the vast majority of guys that say that, you know what, this isn't a thing. Like, yeah, you may be up in the first half, and then that third quarter Warriors comes out, and you're like, what just happened? And I think that's what happens pretty much every time. And then when they see the rich getting richer by picking up a DeMarcus Cousins in the offseason, that's got to be
okay.
That's got to be disheartening.
It's making me feel gross talking about them this long. So, it's not just the Heat. It's just like, I don't want to keep talking about them because I'm sure we'll have lots to talk about. But I do want to return just briefly back to CJ and KD. Do you think that where do you fall on the basketball players shouldn't, aren't friends? Like, how do you think the fact that these guys they're all going on each other's bleeping podcasts nowadays, right? So there's obviously some degree of friendship. Like, do you think that makes better basketball the more familiar and, friendly they are? Or do you think that harms basketball? Or do you have any thoughts on that at all?
I'm okay with them being friends as long as some of them hate each other.
Okay.
And they do.
As long as there's a villain, like KD could be the villain.
There's a real group of players, like there are guys who are in the league that legitimately hate each other. Mm-hmm. Like I've heard some stories that have made my eyes go, oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
But in general, some of these guys, so many of them like come up together, like starting all the way back, in AAU days, they might be playing together.
Yeah, no, it can definitely be bad, but I am much more team
friendship. You were going to say team friendship, weren't you, Dan?
Team
Dan
anger.
is team friendship. Oh, you think it's better when they don't like each other?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm talking about not better like in terms of like the drama, but like actual basketball.
Oh,
like,
no, yeah, no. I want guys going at each other.
You think it's better basketball when they don't like each other and they don't care if they're just, but as opposed to they know each other so well that they know each other's tricks and more than just like the scouting report, but they know each other so well that they know like the reasons behind why they do things.
I want to see their best friends like become mortal enemies. That's what I want to see.
Wow.
When they start talking trash, it's like it becomes like real personal. Mm-hmm. That's what I want to see.
Well, we have a good chance to see that this coming season because so many players, big name players now have traded teams. I mean,
yeah, that Toronto San Antonio series is going to be something.
Yeah,
yeah.
So
those two games are going to be.
Well, so now that Kawhi has been traded to Toronto, I still am shocked that San Antonio got so much from that deal because I think DeMar DeRozan is. I really was surprised that they got so much out of it. But so now that has kind of shaken out, and most of the free agents also have now chosen their teams. Which team do you think got better? Gets the most better? I don't know. How do you say that?
Between San Antonio and Toronto?
No. Well, I was going to do like generally, but maybe we could start with that and then go out, I guess.
Well, I mean, the Lakers obviously because they pick up LeBron.
Right, but what's the second team?
It's Toronto. I mean, they picked up a top, like, I think people forget.
And you're 100% positive that Kawhi is going to be back and he's going to be just like he was last year. Nothing that happened this year is going to affect how he plays next year.
He's going to screw with his bag if he does. So, and there's some CBA provisions that are going to prevent him from dragging out this situation, possibly, because if he doesn't in the final year of his contract, render services for
if he doesn't play
90 days, then it becomes an arbitration board where a solo doctor comes over, and then it's in his hands, and then Kawhi can't play or sign with anybody else until the Raptors give permission. So Kawhi Leonard is going to play basketball, and he's going to play it hard because he wants to get paid. Mm-hmm. So,
do you think the rest of the team is equipped to absorb him and his style and everything that he does?
Yeah, no, I mean, who knows what it's going to do as far as in the locker room, because now you have to kind of wonder what does Kawhi's presence do to the locker room, especially when a guy like DDR is the guy that went out who was so beloved inside and outside the organization. But from a purely basketball standpoint, Kawhi Leonard, I mean, if you had me ranked at the top 3 players in the world when healthy, I'd say LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if you're moving Jakob Poeltl and DeMar DeRozan for Kawhi Leonard and Danny Green, let's not forget Danny Green's still a decent basketball player here. Mm-hmm. I think that's a hell of a fit for Toronto.
Who else do you think made big strides in the offseason?
I really want to say Dallas did.
Really?
Yeah.
Between Doncic and Jordan.
You move up to take Doncic. Atlanta had a chance and they took Trae Young. God bless their hearts. I hope that one seems like one that's going to come back and bite a lot of people. But I mean, take a look at Dallas right now. There's always one team that surprises. Last year it was the Pacers when they added Oladipo and Sabonis. This team is adding Doncic and DeAndre Jordan to Dennis Smith Jr., Harrison Barnes, and Wes Matthews and Dirk Nowitzki. Mm-hmm. Like, that's a pretty decent team, right? On paper?
It should be.
So I really like what they did. Phoenix is the team I've talked about that, again, we're talking about that's really through the draft more than anything else. I really like the fact that the Spurs didn't send Kawhi Leonard to the West. So
yes.
That was good.
That was the nicest thing they've ever done for Trailblazer fans.
Right? I mean, they owe us that after Sean Elliott at bare
After
minimum.
taking everything that we love over
Yeah,
the last 10 years. Yeah.
And then longer.
And putting a snake in T-Rob's locker.
Yeah, I almost forgot about
that
that.
one.
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
That's one of my favorite things. I have a snake theme, Dan. And for people who haven't read it, Sean Hyken wrote a great article about the history of the snake meme, basically, in the NBA, which is really great. But he did not include the part during the playoffs in, 2015 or 16, when Portland was in San Antonio, and there was a snake in T-Rob's locker. Now, I'm not saying that San Antonio put it there on purpose, but it was there.
Oh, yeah, no. I mean, San Antonio is a weird place. I mean, they had bats flying around in there, so
Yeah.
I think there's at least
But that was the
level
nicest thing that they did, is that they sent Kawhi to the East.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of looking around the league, I really like what the Lakers have done from a standpoint of it's going to be so damn entertaining. What a complete and utter dumpster fire that is going to be. I think LeBron, the reason he's okay with all these signings is he's got that new show that he's putting together with HBO where they're going to have like never-ending content. Mm-hmm. Like that's the best like managing editor or producer of a show I've ever seen. Like, hey, want to watch me create content for the next 3 years by 5 signings? Boom.
So
the real Lakers of Los Angeles is happening.
I think that the addition of all those veterans on 1 year, I think people are making too big of a deal about that. I mean, I think it was like, we need to bring in some people who have experience, but because we have a talented young core. So I feel like they're just they brought in enough guys with a vast array of experience and personalities so that they could, have enough to match everybody up and make sure that somebody's got either like a mentor or somebody who they can at least be paired up with to think about, like, this could be your career. You could pay attention right now and work really hard. This could be what you turn out, good or bad. But I mean, I think that they brought those guys in just, to be there for a year so that young core, they could figure out which ones of those young guys work the best with LeBron. I don't think it's really that weird that they brought in all those guys.
Yeah, I think it's a little weird, Tara. You don't
Really?
bring in that collection of dudes unless you're trying to do something.
Okay,
Like one of those guys is enough. Like just for perspective's sake.
Okay.
The
I
Cleveland
think
Cavaliers had one dude in J.R. Smith who threw a bowl of soup and forgot to score in the finals. And look at the play that one dude got. Now you're going to throw Lance Stevenson, who's already just all kinds of cuckoo.
So Lance is the toughest one, but I can see JaVale and Rajon Rondo both bringing things. JaVale McGee gets a terrible rap.
No, he has a terrible rat tail. That's the problem. JaVale,
And he wears it with
JaVale.
pride. He's embraced it.
I like JaVale, but JaVale is a basket of cats. Like, you just don't know what you're going to get in any given moment. He's entertaining, he's funny, but he's just as likely to box out and get an offensive rebound and go for a dunk as he is to forget which end he's going to score on.
But he's the kind of guy who, if he's on the bench for 5 games and, doesn't see the court, he's sitting there next to those young guys. He's a presence there. He's talking to them. And then when it's time for him to get in, he is up and he is in and he is 100%
Tara,
in.
there was 20 of those guys on the free agent list still. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, they weren't signing these guys because they were that's what was left. They went out and actively searched out Lance Stevenson, Michael Beasley, JaVale McGee, Rajon Rondo. Like,
I forgot about Michael Beasley.
Yeah, they went out and signed the Bad News Bears. Like, this is something they actively went out and did. There's no doubt in my mind. It is, at the bare minimum, the way everybody in the NBA wins here is it all drowns out LeVar Ball. Like, the amount of just ridiculous things.
Yeah, they could just send Lance to go talk to LeVar.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
Boom.
Like, LeVar has to say something so ridiculous now to even get the smidgen of attention that he got last year. Will have to be so far out of left field that nobody will even take it seriously.
Yeah, and I think that Rondo would be. I think it's great for Lonzo Ball to have Rajon Rondo there. Why are you laughing? Why are you laughing?
As great and as like basketball savanty as Rajon Rondo is with the basketball and as a point guard, the things that I've heard about him and his relationship with teammates, especially like helping younger guys, not something I've heard a lot of positive things about.
Okay, but LeVar Ball isn't, or Lonzo. Sorry, did I call him LeVar earlier?
No,
Lonzo isn't somebody who needs babysitting. He's somebody.
I'm not even talking babysitting. I'm talking like just like basic mentoring. Like the rap on Rondo is that he's the basketball version of my personality.
Okay.
To put it lightly, he's a bit of an a-hole.
Up and comer who's trying to learn the business wouldn't.
Isn't really going to benefit. Yeah, he's not that guy. He's not the wise old sage.
I'm not saying that he's going to be the Ed Davis to the Zach Collins.
No, but that's
not what I'm saying.
He's there to hoop. Like, I don't think he's there to be anything for Lonzo. Again, I think this is more about like the stories that I've heard about Lonzo are pretty impressive. Or should be about Rondo are pretty impressive considering what I'm trying to dance around this the right way because I can't. There's things that I can't say.
Him beating little kids at Connect 4 2 at a time.
Yeah, there you go. That's the perfect example with how Rondo is kind of perceived around the league. Like there's some realism to that.
So Rajon Rondo is known for going to a boys and girls club and taking on all comers and just destroying all the kids at Connect 4.
Let's just say we'll use that
like
one
playing
incident.
multiple games at a time.
Yeah, we'll use that one incident as a kind of a marker for like how Rondo is perceived around the league. He has a prickly personality.
Right.
But I mean, just the Lakers signings in general are like if Magic Johnson, Rob Pelinka made these deals, or Jerry Bruckheimer made these deals, like you couldn't tell which one signed who because they work as easily
theater.
Yeah, they work just as simple as they do for a horrible LA movie as they do for a horrible LA basketball team.
But you don't really think they're going to be horrible, do you?
With LeBron, it boosts them up to a playoff team. Because if you take LeBron out of that team, oh my God, the infighting would have just been...
Right.
LeBron's personality is just so big that it's going to overshadow everything.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Like, I wouldn't want any of those guys coming in without LeBron also coming in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absent LeBron, I'm completely with you. Let me be absolutely clear on that.
But I mean, like
league-wide,
league-wide,
team,
those are the big storylines that I'm looking at so far. Are obviously the Kawhi DeRozan trade. Some stars made some moves and didn't make moves. There's a lot of things here that I just want the season to get here because there are some things that are going to play out with some of the young upcoming teams: Dallas, Phoenix, Memphis, Atlanta, like Chicago. Like what's going to happen with them because they're obviously the tiers behind the Bostons and the Phillies of the world. And obviously the train wreck of Carmelo, who is yet to sign with Houston officially. What that's going to mean kind of going forward, you know?
Yeah. I'm really, there's a couple things with regards to the Blazers. Are they going to make it to the playoffs with the West in the situation that they are right now. That's something we're going to really need to. I don't think we're going to know until we see. I mean, we could prognosticate as much as we want, but I think some of these teams,
when I run the schedule,
new makeups are so special that you just got to see.
I mean, when the schedule comes out, I'll run my simulations like I do every year. And, I've gotten pretty close the last couple of years. I mean, the last...
Did you predict the Blazers coming in third in the West?
No, I had
third in the... Yeah.
I had them between 6th and 7th last year, but it wasn't off by that many wins. I think I had them at 46.5. Was my line for them,
right?
Which was in line with the year before, but I figured that would have had them at 6th or 7th. So, and then I think that's going to be
we can't go
back
into the trade machine and put the new players in and see how, because you know how in the trade machine it says this team will improve by 3 and this team will.
Well, I mean, you can do that to an extent, like Jacob Goldstein got his model that's out there, where it's the same basic idea, where it shows you based on a couple different measurements what the expected wins are, and from what I've seen across the board from a lot of analytics, basketball analytics Twitter, is that they're at anywhere from 38 to 44 wins. Which if you contrast that with where they've been the last couple of years, it's kind of like where they've fallen,
right?
And with not many changes and reasonable expectations of the Western Conference. I think most people are going to look at Portland as one of those odd teams out, and that's going to piss a lot of people off.
Well, but last year also we were so sure that teams like Minnesota and Denver were going to make these astronomical leaps, and so I think
Minnesota
we're going to
did.
be right there again. Well, they made it into the playoffs, but I mean, I don't know. They didn't get as much better as I thought that they were going to get. And then OKC, we thought OKC was going to, run over everybody, and they really didn't. So my other thing is like with the Northwest Division last year, it being so tight competitively.
It's going to be brutal again.
I'm wondering, yeah.
If this isn't Denver's year, what is?
We've said, I don't know. This is like it's hard because this is the third season that we're going into with the exact same storyline of continuity, and all these other teams are gonna take off, and like I guess what I'm wondering is, like, are the Blazers really going to run back and play the same kind of basketball again?
That hamster wheel's fun.
Could they do the thing that, Toronto did last year, which didn't work out great for Dwayne Casey in the end? But, we're going to redo our culture, but we're going to keep all the same players. Like, I don't know. I guess one thing that we could look for is, are they going to have a San Diego trip again this year? Because they didn't do that last year. And now they have like 4 new guys that they have to incorporate. So maybe they'll shake things up again by doing their preseason trip and, get them off on the right foot again. I don't know. It's just weird. There's so much having gone on, and you've been saying this isn't like a surprise to you. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. But it's like, the third year we have the exact same storyline. Oh, we have so much continuity. They're the youngest team in the league.
This hamster wheel's fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is why I've been, not to beat this freaking drum again, but this is why. And you know what? I'm going to go down this rabbit hole because I had multiple people bring it up on Twitter over the last few days that people were questioning because I didn't think that the Blazers not using the TPE was the end of the world. Because in the grand scheme of things, it's not something that's typically used. Like,
right.
It's not. And I had people thinking that I wasn't able to see the big picture, that I was championing what the Blazers were doing right now, and it made me want to put my head through a wall. Well, because I don't think there's been anybody as vocal as me for almost 3 years now, calling for radical change.
Right.
Like, so the fact that anybody would even confuse the fact that I'm okay with staying where things are is like, Not exactly.
I think people were looking at the TPE as the Blazers' last chance for radical change. And when you saw them let that go by, one more thing that they let go by, they think that you're going to be mad about that. So, I mean, I have a hard time trying to figure it out with you too, because, in some sort, it's like what I think I responded to you, like what the Blazers are doing right now and have been doing is they're hugging a tree. Like, if you are lost in the woods, you find a tree and you hold on to it until people come and find you. Of course, if you figure out some way to get out, you get out. But otherwise, you hold on until your rescue comes. And right now, the rescue coming is going to be 2020 when all the contracts expire. So, you don't want them to, make moves just for the sake of making moves, do you? Like, you want them to make a big giant move because you think it's one that's going to make a difference. Otherwise, hold on, right? Is that? Well,
no, it's not even hold on. I want them to make a move.
But if they don't, because they haven't yet, and they're
then don't double down on stupidity.
Right.
It's either wholesale changes or just write it out and be miserable.
Yeah.
Like it's. I don't think there's a world where this little tweak here. I had somebody reply to me. It was like, because I said that Wilson Chandler at best adds 2 to 3 wins, and he says, "Well, what if they add 2 to 3 wins this year, and then they add 2 to 3 wins next year, and then 2 to 3 wins?" Like, growth in the NBA, growth in any sport is not linear, and everybody kind of needs to take a step back and realize that.
What do you mean it's not linear?
Growth. Just because you won one year doesn't mean you're going to win more the next year.
Okay.
It's not linear. Winning is not linear. It never has and never will be, because there are changes.
So are you saying you have to take a step back in order to move forward?
At a certain point, yes, you do. Every franchise does. Mm-hmm. Let's take a look at Wilson Chandler.
Whether or not it's on purpose or not.
Yes. Let's take a look at Wilson Chandler. Okay, say the Blazers add Wilson Chandler for this year, and they win 2 or 3 more games than they would have otherwise. Great. Now what? Now you're in the luxury tax, and you are putting your own in a position where it's going to cost more money for the same talent as it would to everybody else in the league who's not paying the luxury tax. And people could say, well, it's Paul Allen's money. I don't care. Guess what? Paul Allen cares. So everybody just needs to just realize that now.
But so what if
he's a billionaire? Okay, well, let me finish this. So Wilson Chandler added those 2 to 3 wins this year. Well, now what's the sunk cost and what's the expected cost to get those 2 to 3 wins back? Well, does that mean you have to sign Wilson Chandler? Well, now you don't have the cap space to sign Wilson Chandler. And with the money that you are going to offer him, even if he takes it, it's going to cost you more in the long run just to replace the 2 to 3 wins that he got you, let alone the 2 to 3 more wins that you expect to get if you're talking about linear growth. And that's why it matters so much when people ask about contracts and value, because you want to be the team like the Warriors where your production is ahead of the value or cost it's sunk into them, so that when the growth isn't linear, then you can make the moves necessary to add the next piece to get forward without having to change things out.
So I think that last part of what you were talking about is when you talk about players who have the most potential to outperform their contract.
Yes.
You need to get as many players on your roster who can potentially outperform their contract. Right now, the Blazers have too many people on the roster who are just, barring miracle,
they have 2 players on their roster who are non-rookies.
Their contract. So what would you have them do?
Who?
The Blazers.
I would, as always, I've advocated for a radical change, and that's trading CJ McCollum. Like, that's nothing new.
Okay, so it's back to trading CJ. Is that what you're talking about?
It's nothing. That's nothing new.
Right.
But the idea that because I wasn't mad about, like listen, the grand scale of me getting frustrated or angry about the TPE being used was very minimal. Was I happy? No. Did I understand why with all of the history that's surrounded what I've seen for the past 3 years? Yeah. I mean, the writing was on the wall. Was I still discussing options the Blazers could potentially use it for? Yeah, because that's my job. But like in the grand scheme of things, is that the thing that's really going to piss me off? No. And I just found it a little bit strange that I found a lot of fans were Like, that was the breaking point. Like, hey, if that's the breaking point for you to get on the side of the Blazers have made a ton of mistakes and they need to rectify the situation, cool, good, great, grand. Welcome to the club. We serve cookies.
Well, and I think that a lot of people were watching it because Neil Olshey came out and said, we have this massive TPE that we can use.
Numerous times. Like, if you want to get mad about him selling the TPE, that right. I understand. Yeah, I understand that more than the idea of not using the TPE, because most TPEs go unused. So
right.
But yes, the marketing of it, totally get that.
But like you said, it's your job. And some of us are just like watching and enjoying. And when he comes out and markets it as this asset that they can use and they don't use it, people are going to get mad and they're going to, turn to you because you've been, saying they need to make a big change. And it looks like they had this chance and they didn't. So I think that's why, I wouldn't get that mad about it.
There was a lot more frustration with it than I anticipated.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think, again, it goes back to marketing. Okay, we should wrap it up because I have turned off all my fans and closed all my windows in order to make this podcast, and I am sweating so bad right now. Two more quick things.
Shout out to Central Air.
Just to mention is that if you want to watch basketball and you want to watch a Portland Trailblazer play basketball, the NBA Africa game is going to be next Saturday, August 4th, and Aminu is playing on the Africa team. So that's
his second or third time down there, I think.
Yeah, it's his second time, I believe. And CJ McCollum also played previously for the world team. But Aminu will be there playing for Africa, and he's also already been in Africa this year. He did his camp in Ibadan earlier in July. So that's cool. Blazer 5 gaming update. They have clinched their playoff spot. They are the number 1 seed in the playoff tournament. They had a doubleheader this weekend, and one Wild Walnut put up a 30-point, 24-rebound double-double.
The Yusuf Nurkic special.
A few hours later, Mama I'm Dat Man got a 29.24 assist double-double. So Blazer 5 Gaming, they are on fire. So
you've now officially cursed them.
No, I've been talking about them this whole season, Dan.
I know. You said last week, though, that every time you try to bring them up, they fall short. So are you going to jinx them going into the playoffs?
No. They lost one game. We've dealt with that. They were up too late the night before playing video games, ironically, in my opinion. That's what in my mind, that's why they lost.
Wouldn't that be great if like your excuse for that was like I was working?
But no, they I don't know why they lost that one game, and
it happens.
I'll forgive them that because they did retain the number 1 seed, which I think is super awesome. So you can watch them coming up. You can watch the NBA All Africa game. I guess we didn't really touch on the mini camp, but if you're desperate for NBA news, you could follow what's going on with what happened at the mini camp that Damian Lillard showed up one day to
got his
hang
picture
out
taken for
with his buddies.
It is worth pointing out that Dame will probably make the next Olympic team if he wants to. So
I hope so. I mean, credit to him for sticking it
out, because a lot of guys at that point in their career wouldn't. Mm-hmm. So that's cool for him.
Yeah. But that's about all I can find for us to discuss this week. We don't want to.
Yeah, no. This is the fact that we got an hour out of this is pretty much something that's very good for the fact that I just can't shut up. So speaking of not shutting up, I do have a cool event to announce. August 19th is the Rip City Cornhole Tournament, the official Rip City Cornhole Tournament. So that'll be taking place down at the Moda Center Garage. Shane, Joe, and I will be down there as the official representation of NBC Sports and Blazers Outsiders. So if you're
so how's that going to work?
Cornhole, it's a 3-man team.
Okay, 3-person team.
Yep. We will.
And so, is it going to be through NBC Sports Northwest? Like, are you going to be able to go on there and like sign up and stuff?
No, this is the Blazers Cornhole Tournament. This is the official Rip City one. So,
okay.
I'll put the link in the page. But yeah, it's just something cool to do during the summertime because Lord knows August in the NBA, that's like Death Valley. So it'll be interesting.
Well, that's exciting. Yeah. We'll have to learn. I don't know any of the rules of cornhole. I can't promise I'm going to get as into cornhole as I got into esports. But
no, you will.
We'll give it a try.
It gets more time on ESPN.
All right, Dan. Well, it's great to talk to you this week. You can find me at TCBBiggs on Twitter. And why don't you take us out?
All right, folks, as always, you can find me on Twitter at DMarang, at DMARANG, on Tuesdays and Thursday nights at 7 p.m. on NBC Sports Northwest, on Blazers Outsiders with my co-hosts Shane Brennan and Joe Simons. You can find me on all social media at the same handle. I think I've got them all linked up now. Yeah. Just think about that for a second. Apologies for the podcast because it's July, folks. Going into August. Hey! This is what you get. I'm apologizing for myself here, okay? Not for you, Terry. You're always great. But if you guys do have questions, comments, concerns, you can always shoot them to us on Twitter at our handles. Or Tara, go ahead and let them know the email address.
Oh, yes. It is blazersedgepod@gmail.com.
Perfect. As always, folks, like, subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. It does help us out. Unsubscribe, do it all, take advantage of the system. We are a part of the Almighty Baller podcast and radio network. For Tara Bowen-Biggs, I'm Danny Marang. We'll catch you guys next week. Thanks, and catch you later.